Hello, hello, and welcome to the first ever Ask Mike. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. This is a show where you get to ask a billionaire certain questions that you may have always wanted to answers to, questions about wealth creation. So suffice it to say, viewers, you're in for a show. So we had 350 people submit applications to Ask Mike. And our special guest, of course, is Michael Lee Chin. He is very, very, very well known. He is the now executive chairman of NCB, among many other things. You know him as Jamaican-born Canadian billionaire. His reputation precedes him. I don't need to say much. And this evening, 9 of our viewers are going to ask Michael Lee Chin questions and advice on their own wealth creation strategies. But first, let's take this little break, and then we introduce Mr. Lee Chin and our special guest this evening. Attention! Are you struggling with money? Trying to figure out how to pay off your credit cards? Are you ready to learn how to invest and grow your money? I'm Kalila Reynolds, the Money General, and I'm on a mission to help you get better with money. Join me inside the Money Mission community, where I'll teach you how to manage money, make more money, and annihilate bad debt. Click the link in the description to sign up for your basic or premium membership. Let's get this money.
I took Kalila's Investing for Beginners masterclass because I heard there was an IPO launching, and I just jumped right into it.
Help you to know how to invest and the steps they can go to achieve your goals as well.
If it is that y'all are interested in learning about investments or anything, I really suggest that you hop on that class, that masterclass, because the way that I look at money now and saving, I look at it different now.
Kalila, you're the reason Merchant and Brown started investing.
Learn the basics about stock market investing today. Investing for Beginners is available on demand or with a premium membership to the Money Mission community. Join now at moneymission.mn.co. The link is in the description. Turn up in ya. Drift song of the summer. Yes, who is excited? I sure am. I see a lot of people saying their front row. Let me take some comments before we introduce Mr. Lee Chin. Ramon says checking in early, front row. Altamont says 100%. Shamar says exciting. Nessa is here. Who's this? Jabalani says nice, and lots of people. Nicole here for the gems, because y'all remember last time there were gems upon gems upon gems upon gems. Well, let's introduce our guest of the hour, or the next 2 hours actually, Michael Lee Chin. Welcome to Ask Mike.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. So the last time you were here, one of our viewers asked you specifically, would you mentor young Jamaicans or any Jamaicans at all on wealth creation? And you said you challenged us to set it up, and we did. So we are here, and you have also honored your commitment. We both have, and I'm excited to get into it.
I'm nervous.
Don't be. Well, before we do it, so I don't know if you want to address this, because you are the topic of the afternoon. I was just listening to Nationwide. Really? I was just listening. As a matter of fact, I got a call about an hour ago asking me to come on Nationwide this evening and discuss developments at NCB regarding you. And I'm like, but I'm about to talk to him myself. We have a mentorship thing coming up. So I'll leave it up to you. Do you want to address that now before we start, since everybody's talking?
We should just stay focused on why we're here.
Okay. All right. Well, no problem. And since we are here, let me introduce our very first guest, our very first questioner. His name is Kevin Valli. Kevin, just go ahead and introduce yourself real quick. Tell Mr. Lee Chin a little bit about yourself, and then ask a question, and then you guys take me off the screen.
Good evening, Mr. Lee Chin. Very nice to meet you. All right. So Yes, I am a consultant and chartered business valuator. I especially work with entrepreneurs and executives who are looking to demonstrate their business value, as well as to raise capital from investors. Now, I have a background of almost 15 years of experience in terms of debt financing, equity financing, investment banking, private equity, and the like. And my career goal, at least right now, is to try and attract international investors to Caribbean businesses. And I thought, well, you'll be the perfect person to ask, what do you think is the best way to go about doing that?
Could you repeat your first name, please?
Kevin Valli.
Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Yes.
Hi.
So, Kevin, really, you're fortunate to be born in this era, in that you don't have to be of a particular nationality to build a global business, especially if it's a business that requires intellectual IP. You can do that anywhere, right? So you're in the finance, you're a business valuator. You said you did investment banking?
Yes, investment banking, private equity analysis.
Private equity. So therefore, you are an analyst. You have an analytical mind, right? So your situation really is perfect to be, you can be on the beach or you can be in Greenland. It does not matter. So I just walk you through my own situation when I first started in business. And I think that case study should give you some direction. So I wanted to be a money manager, right? I wanted to be a money manager, to manage mutual funds, to manage my own fund. So if you're getting into business, you have to say to yourself, okay, what's the framework that I want to be governed by so that I can have consistency of behavior over time? So I get the compounding effect, right? What's the framework? Because, when you have a framework, it's like your value system. It's like your religion. You stick to it and you become better and better and better every day. It's not like you're doing something different every day, okay? Correct. So I thought there are 3 things that are most important to any and every business. Number 1, every business has to think about every day. Number 1, what is the reputation it is building in the marketplace? Reputation. Secondly, number 2, how is my business differentiated in the marketplace? So reputation differentiated. And number 3, how am I really and truly addressing customers' needs? So every business, Kevin, has to think about that, whether you're a startup or you're a business like NCB that is nearly 200 years old. We still have to think about those things: reputation, differentiation, and customers' needs.
Okay. So in thinking about this venture that I'm building, I use my career as an example as well, because again, in evaluating companies, especially from the region for investment, one impediment I've always encountered is the availability of information, of especially investor-focused information. I mean, around budget time, you might see like a review of the economy and you might get some information around a particular industry or so, but never really as focused as some of the information I would get when I'm doing companies in North America or whatnot. So I want to know, and let me know if you think I've analyzed this right, that one of the main reasons that we don't see as much investment in Caribbean businesses as we should is because of the lack of transparency and insights into the industries here?
I don't know about that, because firstly, if you're making a private transaction, right, and we're talking about a private transaction here, we're talking about private transactions here, right? If you're making a private transaction, when you're during the due diligence process, if the seller doesn't open the data room and give you access to all the information, why would you buy? Right. So it's incumbent on the seller to give you all the information so that you, the buyer, can get up to speed quickly. So there's no asymmetry of information. They don't know more than you. You understand? Because invariably the seller will know more than you, because they have been running the business for a while. So the data room is the opportunity for you to get up to speed quickly in terms of your knowledge, your understanding of the business, what's going on historically, what litigations are outstanding, what are the staff issues, and all the issues, right? So you can go in, spend time in the data room, and be fully versed in what's happening to the business. So in summary, there should be no shortage of information, because that's a function of the seller's intent and the seller's willingness to bring you up to speed to be a responsible buyer.
That makes sense. Okay, but in terms of like before we get to the buyer and seller being at that table, right? So what I've experienced before is that you'd be pitching a certain business to an investor, and they might say, okay, well, I don't really get that industry. But if they're able to get an industry insight before they were to meet the entrepreneur, do you think that would change anything?
So is the question the buyer's understanding of the particular industry?
Yes, especially in the context of the Caribbean and nuances that we have here.
Well, again, that is the buyer's. That should be if you're intend to buy a business, you have to make sure you understand the industry within which the business is domiciled. In fact, I go back to one of the 5 laws of wealth creation that I codified back in early in my career. And to create wealth, right, you have to make sure that the businesses you own, you don't own too many businesses. That's the first thing, not too many, because so you own only a few high quality businesses, number one. Number two, make sure you understand the businesses. Understand is the key here, because you minimize your risk the more you understand. Number three, the business that you own should be in a strong long-term growth industry. Number four, the business should be using other people's money prudently. And lastly, the business should be one in which you're confident that holding for the long term is a great idea, because that's how wealth is created, by holding businesses for the long term. So the second, the first was own a few high quality businesses. Second, that you understand. Third, making sure the industry is in a strong long-term growth sector, which is the question you're asking. So it's for you, the buyer, to understand the dynamics of the industry today and where it's going, so you can be confident that the industry will be in a strong long-term growth sector.
Okay, thanks. This is very helpful. So I guess from an advisor standpoint, the owners will be really to make sure that the industries are well understood and that the growth opportunities within those industries are made well known to investors, so that then we could get to that due diligence phase. Exactly.
So therefore, if I were an advisor like yourself, Kevin, I would make sure that I selected a few industries that I really understand, and I become a specialty of those industries. And I make sure that those industries have some tremendous long-term growth dynamics. Because the essence of creating wealth is what I defined, I've codified as the 3 Ps. The first P is you have to predict, right? Number 2, the second P is you have to plan for your prediction. And number 3, you have to persevere with your plan. So in the prediction, in this case, we're talking about an industry. Why am I sure that this industry that I'm considering going in is in a strong long-term growth mode? So I need to be able to predict it and be able to justify my prediction, right? So that I have a high degree of confidence that the industry itself is strong long-term growth. Because to minimize your risk, you want to marry a high quality business in a strong industry. When you have, in other words, a rising tide, which is a long-term growth industry, lifts all boat. So even if the business is not high quality, it's supported by the strength of the industry, and it allows you to make mistakes, because you will make mistakes. So it's the combination of the quality of the business and the strength of the industry itself, that you will that combination will minimize your risk. A rising tide lifts all boats. Even if your boat is leaky, the tide will still lift it. But obviously, the optimal situation is to have a high quality boat or high quality business in a rising tide.
100%. Thank you very much. Oh, by the way, my brother Kerwin says hi. You may remember him from
I know Kerwin. I know
yes,
your dad. Man. Your dad and I went to university.
Okay. Yes, McMaster. Right. Yes.
Yes, McMaster.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much. I think that's my time. Thank you very much, Kalila, for facilitating.
My pleasure.
World for you and his dad to have gone to school together. Great
Amazing.
questions. Yes, thank you so much. So your next mentee is Keimo Edwards. Let's introduce Keimo. You can put Keimo on. All right.
Keimo.
So, Keimo, tell us a little bit about yourself and then ask your question.
Sure. So I'm Keimo Edwards. I'm 28 years old. I'm from really humble beginnings. I'm from, I was born and raised in West Kingston. That's Denham Town. Pretty excited to meet you again. I was at your 28-day inauguration with the PSOJ, and we actually got a selfie together. So I'm really excited to actually have you here so I can ask you a couple of questions.
Thank you, Keimo.
All right. So my background is in sales and technology, finance specifically as well. I am currently the owner for First Cloud Consultants and Draper Startup House, Jamaica. I currently have a 9-to-5, and so I'm using that 9-to-5 to supplement my income while I build my business. So the challenge is that how do you say no to opportunities? Because I tend to get a lot of opportunities as I'm building my business, different business ventures coming up, and they're really great. Sometimes they sound like they can build faster than the current business that I'm building. And I'm wondering, should I stay focused on doing what I'm doing, or should I try to build more than one of these things at a time?
I don't know about you, but I can only focus on one thing at a time, Keimo. Probably two, right? So remember, so if you see a success formula that has always guided me is the following. You want to be successful at anything. Number one, you govern your behavior by a sound intellectual framework, right? Number two, you make sure that you don't allow your emotions to corrode your framework, right? And number three, you have to have access. And by the way, Keimo, you have to have all three together to be successful. So framework, control your emotions, and access. The framework to create wealth in any business is that you have to own a few high quality, right? So you have to choose how many would represent few, right? And you have to know.
You're not going to tell me that was the next question.
So you have to choose how many. I'll get to that. So you have to choose how many would represent a few, right? Because one businesses are dynamic. The environment is changing. The interest rates going up, down. The tax situation is changing. Competition is changing. Staff turnover. So it's a dynamic entity. So you can't have too many. You can't understand too many of them and be fully ensconced in too many of them. So number one, own a few high quality businesses. Number two, make sure you understand them. And it's that understand which will limit the number of businesses you can really own, right? Understand. Number three, you make sure that the businesses you own are in a strong long-term growth industry. Number four, you have to make sure the businesses are using other people's money prudently. And lastly, you have to be prepared to hold the business for the long run. So if I'm flooded by different opportunities, as you say, I need a methodology to be able to sift through those opportunities, right? And if the methodology I use is the framework I just gave to you. So for each business, I'll say I have 5 points that I need to have tick marks against each, or X's. And I'll just pass, now that I've defined and codified the framework, those 5 laws, anybody come to me with an opportunity, I say, okay, is this a high quality business or does it have the potential to be high quality? Number 2, do I understand it? Number 3, is the industry within which it is domiciled a strong long-term growth industry? Number 4, is it using other people's money prudently? And lastly, is it a business that I want to own for the long run? So if I'm given 10 opportunities, I pass each opportunity through that sieve, that framework, and the answer will come out naturally. So irrespective of the number of business, I always pass them through my framework to have consistency of behavior as to what the residual businesses I will own.
Okay, got it. And as I mentioned, your 5 criteria for wealth creation, right? When you said to find a few high quality business, do you mean that I need to build them, or that can be buying existing business? Which one is more likely to lead to success, or which one is the better path to kind of take?
Well, certainly, it's the start a business from zero is tough. It's tough. So if you have the capital, you will be able to look at businesses that have a track record, right? And that will be the easier path to take if you have the capital or if you have access to the capital. Remember I said you need a framework, you need to control your emotions, and you need access. And by the way, you need all 3. 2 out of 3 not good enough. So if you have access to capital, then finding a business that is existing will save you a lot of time. And it has a track record that you can measure, you can look at, you can see, you can observe, and therefore you can look at existing management. You can see what the strengths are, what the weaknesses are, and what therefore you should be doing to augment it.
Okay, got it. And
so it depends on the capital you have. If you don't have any capital, then you have to start from scratch, and you have to do what you're doing, which is supplement your the business with your 9 to 5, right? And so it depends on whether you have the capital or not. In my case, I didn't have the capital, so I had to work and invest to get the capital.
Makes sense. So, well, that brings me kind of to the next question. So Draper Startup House is like an ecosystem like the Branson Center. It's backed by a US billionaire, Tim Draper, right? He has identified the Caribbean as a place that he's looking to invest, right? And I'm the country lead for Jamaica, and we have other locations in Trinidad and Bahamas as well. So my question to you, are you interested in venture funding for startups? Probably not just funding, but also giving them, building a similar framework that teaches entrepreneur all the frameworks that you have that are listed on the Instagram page, but breaking them down into models that persons can go through like a accelerator and learn these frameworks, right, and implement them in their business in a recycling type of way. Are you open to creating something like that?
You see, Keimo, as you see, I'm here tonight, and I challenge Kalila to bring on, because she said people like for me to mentor them. So time is my issue. I would love to, but just don't have enough time. So this forum is a very good way for me to leverage my time and benefit many people. So I don't have the time to be doing it on an individual basis.
No, not necessarily on an individual, but creating like an actual syllabus that our curriculum breaks down the model.
Boy,
not
Keimo,
I would love having somebody extract the information.
Actually, you know, Keimo, that we actually, now that you remind me, we do have at head office here in Canada a syllabus that would describe exactly what you are saying. So what you could do, what you're asking, what you could do is get in touch with my office through Kalila, and we will figure it out.
All right, sure, no problem. We'll do. I think that should be my time for questions. I want to thank you for the opportunity for speaking with me. It was a real pleasure. I do have a ton more questions, But I guess the syllabus, the curriculum will answer a lot of the others that I do have.
Yes. Okay. But pleased to meet you.
Thank you so much, Keimo. Keimo coming in with the question. Keimo came prepared. Keimo was like, all right, you're giving us your time. We want some money now to, to invest in entrepreneurs in the Caribbean. Our next mentee is DeAndre Haughton. DeAndre, go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
All right. Thank you very much, Kalila. So I'm DeAndre Haughton. I'm a student at the University of the West Indies. I specialize in economics and management studies, and I have a strong love for finance overall. So my question to you is, I recognize that there are immeasurable value of guidance and mentorship, and tonight is a testament of the mentorship from you. So with that said, I would like to ask you about your personal experience with having a mentor, and what was it like for you to have a mentor by your side throughout your career? How did this mentorship shape your personal growth and contribute to your success?
Well, in business, I was selling mutual funds, knocking on doors. That's where I started.
Door to door.
Yeah, in Canada in 1977 to 87. Then I started my business, AIC. And I was always intrigued by the investment process. How do people create wealth?
Yeah.
And I said earlier, well, I didn't say it yet, but a framework that guided me and still guides me is, if you want to be successful at anything, DeAndre,
Yes.
number one, you identify a role model. Anything, identify a role model. You want to be the best accountant, student, athlete, identify who is the best in that space. Number two, kneel at the role model's feet and say, role model, how did you do it? I want the recipe to the last minutia detail. Get the recipe. And number three, don't put your fingerprint on it. Do the same. Okay? So role model, recipe, do the same. So I believed and believe in that. So when I got into business, I thought, I want to be able to understand how wealth is created, because I want to be able to create wealth and be the role model for it. Right?
Yes.
So I looked at wealthy people, trying to find a role model. And I came across this book entitled, this is back in 1980. It was entitled The Money Masters by one John Train. And he was chronicling the behavior, the methodology of the various money managers in America. So as I was going through each chapter, I was getting frustrated because the methodology that they were using was based on economic cycles, predicting economic cycles, predicting stock prices, predicting interest rate behavior. And I just it wasn't tactile enough. I'm an engineer.
Yeah.
I couldn't with confidence do that type of economic prediction. So I was getting frustrated until I came across a chapter on Warren Buffett.
Yes, Warren Buffett.
Right, back in 1980. And I thought, yes, Eureka, I can do what he does. Because all he's doing is he's identifying businesses that has certain traits that make them great. Right? All he's doing is figuring out why these businesses will remain great for a long time. And I could do that. So he became my mentor, but I didn't meet him. So what I would do from 1982 is go to Omaha, Nebraska, and to his annual general meetings. Every year I'd go. When I first went, 1982, there were just 100 of us. Today, his AGMs, they have 45,000.
Wow.
Right? So the 1982, 100 at the Orpheum Theater in Omaha, Nebraska. So I didn't have a mentor that really coached me directly, but I had someone I identified as a mentor, and I studied everything he did. Right? So I didn't have the opportunity to have a personal coach, but I identified someone and I got the recipe by studying everything he did and how he did it and why he did it.
Nice. So you got the cookbook, you got the recipe, and you took it and you
Follow
make your own.
follow the cookbook.
Follow the
To
cookbook
the
to the
most
T.
minutiate detail. Anything in life you want to achieve success in, that will that formula. Identify a role model, get the recipe, and do the same.
Yes. All right. Thank you for that. So let's flip it up a little bit. So your extraordinary leadership and accomplishment through the years, is known. However, it is often through trials and tribulations, setback, that great growth occurs. So, in light of this, I would like to inquire about the major one setback you encounter while deepening your leadership in entities inside and outside of the majority management in NCB. And how do you cope with it and grow from it?
So long question. Are you asking me to give you an illustration of a setback that I've had, and how did I profit from the setback?
Yes.
Okay. So on the 2nd of September 1999, by then my business was 12 years old, AIC, and I started off the business with $800,000 in other people's money, and by 1999 we're up to about 14 billion, 15 billion, managing money for 1 million Canadians. So the fund I was managing personally then was called the AIC Advantage Fund, and I've always been outside of Toronto, so I was never part of that Bay Street Toronto boys club, right? Finance person. I've always been on my own, starting in Hamilton, Ontario, which is a steel city, and then this neighboring community, Burlington, but never in Toronto. So managing this fund, this was, as I said, in total, my company had 15 billion. The funds that I was managing had about $8 billion between in them, and they were primarily invested in companies that were cash flow businesses, strong cash flow businesses, and specifically asset management businesses, because the asset management business is a strong cash flow business with a high return on equity, high margins, etc. So the fund owned all the major Canadian asset management businesses, all of them. We are the largest shareholder in all of them, including TD Bank. We're the largest shareholder of TD Bank. So on September the 2nd, 1999, this was in the middle of the internet boom and telecom boom. The Nasdaq was just roaring. The Nasdaq had gone up to 5,000, and it was just, businesses were just trading at insane valuation. So to give you an example, a telecom company in Canada by the name of JDS Uniphase was trading at 200 times earnings.
Wow.
Which means if the earnings did not grow, it would take you 200 years to get your money back.
Wow.
So I thought, this is crazy, because the business that I own were trading at 12 times earnings, which means if the earnings did not grow, you get your money back in 12 years.
12 years.
So why did anybody buy a business that's going to take them 200 years to get their money back? But that was that was just froth in the market, a bubble building. So I refused, because of my discipline, to get into those speculative areas. But unit holders of my fund were redeeming because they were attracted by the easy money, and that was the game of the moment. The Nasdaq going up rapidly, and the cash flow businesses were out of favor. So an article was written in Canada by the national newspaper, which was entitled AIC, to my company, Disadvantage, No Friends on Bay Street. In other words, what the article said is, look, unit holders of the fund Michael Leachin is managing, the unit holders are selling to buy into the new thing, internet stocks, and he refuses to sell because of his philosophy, right? And he has cash flow businesses. Cash flow businesses are out of favor. So unit holders, if you're selling and he refuses to sell his stocks and change, what's going to happen eventually, because he's the largest shareholder of all of these businesses, right? When he starts selling to meet redemptions, he will drag down the price of all of those companies. And unit holders, you should be selling now before he sells, and he will have to sell. So when I came in on September the 2nd, 1999, to that article, it was tantamount to, wow, this guy is cheerleading a run on my business.
Yeah.
So for the next hour, I was depressed. Then, after I thought, I invoked another framework, DeAndre.
Yeah.
The framework is crisis equals danger plus opportunity. You can't get an opportunity unless there's a crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So I invoked that and I said, there is a crisis here. But the reason I'm feeling nervous and upset is because I'm focusing on the first component of the formula, danger.
Yeah.
Totally ignore the opportunity. So after an hour, I said, Mike, pull up your bootstraps. Start focusing on the opportunity this crisis is presenting. Where are the opportunities? Oh my gosh, I can't think. I'm nervous. Eventually it came to me. Everybody's assuming that I'll have to sell to meet redemptions. What if I didn't? What if I started buying? Because then these stocks were cheap. So nobody wanted to buy them, assuming that I'll have to sell them, then they can get them cheaper.
Exactly.
So my portfolio had 15 stocks. The portfolio had only 15 stocks. So I couldn't buy all. So that day, I called the National Commercial Bank of Canada and said, it was National Bank of Canada, not National Commercial, National Bank of Canada. I said, look, a board member, I said, look, I'd like to borrow some money. He said, how much you want to borrow? I said, 50 million Canadian. So he said, let me call the head office, which is in Montreal. Back to you. 2 hours later, he calls and said, okay, Montreal said, head office said, yes, we will lend you 50 million if you put in 50 million. I said, okay, done. Right? So I had $100 million to invest on that day, September the 2nd, 1999.
Yes.
And I selected one stock, McKinsey Financial Corporation, that I was very familiar with. I understood it very well. And for the next 6 weeks, I sat by the Bloomberg screen and bought $100 million worth of that stock at $15 per share. Long and short of it is that was in addition to what I already owned of this company.
Oh.
Right? So the 100 million gave me another 5% on top of 25% that I'd already owned. So I now own 30% of the company. A year later, another mutual fund company wanted to buy McKinsey. But we were I was the largest shareholder.
Yeah,
right? So the bidding started. It started at $18. Remember, my average price for that purchase, the purchase I started on September 2nd, 1999. My average price for that 100 million was $15. So the bidding started, and it started at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Then I got into the bidding. But the company I was bidding against was the company that I started selling mutual fund for when I started knocking on doors.
Oh.
Right? A company called Investors Group, which was the largest mutual fund company in Canada. So I was now bidding against Investors Group to buy McKinsey. And if I was successful and I'd combined McKinsey with AIC, with the largest mutual fund company in Canada.
Exactly. Overall, North America.
Overall.
Probably.
Not just Canada. But this company, Investors, that was their calling card. We are the largest.
Yeah.
So I thought, there's no way they're going to allow me to win this bid, right? Because they're going to say, we can't allow a former salesman of ours to buy McKinsey, combine it with AIC, and now we are the largest mutual fund company in Canada, which was their calling card. So I knew they were not going to allow me to buy it. So knowing that, I thought, let's have some fun now. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. I said, sell it. Here.
Over 100% profit.
Yes. So we sold it for 4.2 billion, and we owned 30% of it. Right? But the fund I managed, plus my company. 30%. So that was an example of driven by framework and a commitment to what you believe in, because I took the 100 million and put it in the one stock because I understood the business. Okay. Does that answer your question, DeAndre?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Rising from the crisis.
What's the takeaway for you from your standpoint? What's your takeaway?
My standpoint is that no matter what happens, or
what's the takeaway from the experience I just gave you?
Oh, is that it doesn't matter where you're coming from or whatever crisis you face, there's always something good that will come from it. So you just have to stick it through, take the cookbook, study it to the T, and cook with it. Do as best as possible. So I want to thank you. I want to also thank Khalila for having me here. The opportunity to speak with you is one of the best things I've ever done. So
hopefully, DeAndre, you're humbling me, DeAndre.
I look to you as a mentor in this industry. So hopefully we'll get a chance to talk more, because I have more questions. But
thank you
that's
very much.
My time.
Thank you very much, DeAndre. All the best.
Amazing. That's truly amazing. So like Warren Buffett says, Michael, in every crisis, there's an opportunity. So let me take a few other comments. So Nadia says, please save this. Leon saying facts. Anthony says, Jesus bless you, Michael Leachin. You're getting some blessings this evening. AB, love the ad that we aired earlier. Motivation says, good evening, just Mr. Leach. Good evening, Sir Leachin. Just want to say thank you. And then Patricia wanted to know, why is it only men on so far? We do have a couple of women coming on, Patricia, later on. Out of the 10, we had 3 women and one of them dropped out. So it's 7 men, 2 women. And let me just say this, far more men applied than women. So I don't know what that says about our entrepreneurial wealth creation spirit as women, but women, we need to jump on these opportunities as well. So if it seems unbalanced, that's the reasons, because far more men applied than women, but we do have some women coming up a little bit later on. We're going to take our second break and come back with our next mentee.
My name is Trisha Gay O'Connor, and I'm an attorney at law. I attended the Real Estate Investing for Beginners course. It is a topic that has always appealed to me. I came away with a strategy as to how to invest in real estate. So I thought it was something that was definitely a goal, but a far-reaching one, but it seemed much more attainable once I attended it and heard the strategy.
And you're better off, honestly, just buying the property, holding it, and as the value goes up over time, you can access a second mortgage or a home equity loan, as they call it. You can rinse and repeat that strategy and end up with 10 houses, because all you do, you buy one. Even if it's your first house, you're living in there, you buy one house, price goes up over time. Take out a mortgage against now the increase in value, use that to buy a second house. I'll tell you guys, because you're in here, I'm going to pay up on the money. Exactly how I did it.
As simple as it seems, no, I actually never thought about it. And so for me, I have a plan. I didn't expect to come out with a plan, but I came out with a plan. So I'm extremely happy. Thank you very much, Khalila. And thank you so much, Keisha. The information was presented in a very clear, understandable way. And I am grateful. This is the start of me investing in real estate. So guys, definitely join the Money Mission. You won't regret it. Take my word.
Real Estate for Beginners is available on demand or with a premium membership to the Money Mission community. Join now at moneymission.mn.co. The link is in the description.
How you doing?
I'm successful. How are you?
I'm good.
What's funny?
You said you're successful. What, that mean you got business?
Yes, I mind my business.
You probably too much to handle. You got a minute?
You got money?
Yeah, I got money. What you want?
You got cash out?
Nah, not cash out.
PayPal?
What you need right now?
Venmo?
I don't really got no digital payment.
Zelle?
Nah.
Have a nice day.
Hey, bro.
All right, let's get right back to it. Our next mentee is Jaden Jackson. Jaden, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and go right ahead and ask your question.
Hi, good evening, viewers. Good evening, Mr. Leachin. How are you?
Jason?
Hi.
Where are you from?
I am from currently St. Catherine, but I did some time in St. Mary.
Okay. Sometime in St. Mary? You went to prison?
Sometime. So I went to high school in St. Mary, actually.
Okay. When you say did sometime,
so we migrated just before high school. That's my reason.
Okay. Which high school you went to, Jason?
I went to St. Mary High School.
Okay.
Definitely. So of course, my name is Jaden Jackson, and just to give a brief background, so I am a career banker. I have some experience both in commercial and central banking. I also, like most of us, I'm sure, would have understood the importance of creating generational wealth. I've done what I'd like to say is extensive research in relation to that. I've done some research. But I've never gotten the opportunity, Mr. Leachin, to speak to someone like he was accomplished and as successful. So currently, my situation is that despite dabbling in a few business ventures, I really just want to focus and really embark on a particular journey. And I have been looking at two areas. So just to name, one is transport and the other is in finance. I have done some research. I have also created what you can call somewhat of a business plan for both. But I am having some serious challenges just deciding which to really embark on, at least for now. Maybe the other one can come on later down. So that's really my challenge. Just to provide some more information, one would require less capital, but it is also the potential for returns is greater. The other would be
one is
that is
transport and the other
finance
is?
based on the plan that I have. So if I do that, it will require less capital, but the potential returns, it's good, but it's also risky, more risk. And then for transportation, based on the plan, it will require more capital, but of course, safer returns. So that is my dilemma.
The first one, describe the first one is finance?
Yes.
What aspect of finance?
Two things. So it's some amount of consulting, but also potentially looking into providing almost like a microfinance type of setup.
Yes. Yeah. So what's the question?
So, well, what I want to understand from you, just speaking to you, what do you think, advise me on which path I can take? And I know you have some amount of finance knowledge. So you can, especially in that area, give me some advice in relation to establishing myself and how do I go about setting up?
Okay, so you may by default not have a choice. In other words, if you don't have the capital, you have two choices: one that requires capital, the other that doesn't. If you have the capital, then that gives you obviously the choice of both. If you don't have the capital, by default, you only have one. So the first question is, do you have the requisite capital to get the business started and working capital to keep it going until it becomes cash flow positive?
So currently, that is a part of why I've not yet started.
Okay. So therefore,
capital, but I'm getting to it.
Therefore, if I were you, I would stick to finance, because finance is the one that requires would require less capital, right? And once you get it going, the return on capital, return on equity, once it's run properly, could be substantial. But so what I will be doing is firstly looking at my staying power, because starting up a new business is not easy. Starting a new business is not easy. Getting customers is not easy, right? So you just have to ask yourself the question: how much passion do I have for this business? Is the business that when hard times come, right? I can weather it.
Yes.
Because hard times will come, right? And how am I going to weather it? But you don't want to be paralyzed by hard times. None of us should expect that we have a highway with only green lights and no traffic on the highway. That doesn't happen in life. So hard times will come, competition will come, will be there. You just have to ask yourself, how is my business going to be differentiated from every other microfinance business? How is my business going to have the best reputation? Right? What's the reputation I want to build so that my business, people, I'm the first choice. And thirdly, how am I making sure that I address customers' needs? And what infrastructure do I need to deliver that? Right? And most important, how am I going to interface with the customers so that they feel that they're well embraced and they're getting good value, right? So to answer your question, one or the other is a function of having capital or not. If you don't have capital, you have to put in the intellectual sweat and the physical sweat, emotional sweat that you'll have to go through. So you have to persevere, my friend.
Understood. Another question to you, Mr. Lee. So I know basically what I want to know, are there any, let's say, emerging markets or industries that you've seen that should be relatively lucrative and a good option as young investors to start looking into so we can try to get in early and take advantage?
Well, again, let us step back a little bit. Is it Jaton or Jaton? Jaton. Let's step back a little bit, Jaton. If you're looking to get into a business, you want to make sure the business has long-term growth characteristics.
Definitely.
Right? Today, you don't want to invest in a buggy whip business at that extreme. So you want to invest in a business that has long-term growth characteristics. So you are there, and then you have to say to yourself, you have to invoke what I call the 3 Ps. You have to predict, right, what the future is going to look like. So, and you have to have a mechanism of predicting that you're confident that your prediction is right. Okay? Yes. You look at trends, you look at demographic trends, you look at where things are going by whatever means, right? Then the methodology is, I call it the 3 Ps. Number 1, you predict. Number 2, you plan for your prediction. And number 3, you persevere with your plan through thick and thin, right? But you have to be able to rough it out and tough it out in terms of your perseverance. So predict, plan, and persevere. So that's the framework, and that framework you can overarch in whether you're talking about a career. You want to choose a career that has long-term growth characteristics. You have to predict, right? You have to plan to get into that career, and then you have to persevere. Okay. So that's that is now the strategy, right? To determine what industry I should be in. Then need to go from there. Once you determine what industry, how do I enter the industry? If you have no capital, well, if I don't have no capital, I could enter it with my intellectual horsepower, right? Provide consulting services. Right. Provide consulting for services firstly, right? And then you provide consulting services, build up some cash, invest in the industry to start, make some money through your investment, and then you will have the capital to invest. So being a specialist in an area that has long-term growth dynamics, right? You'll be able to provide consultancy. And in today's access that the internet gives us, you're not limited to Jamaica, right? You can provide consultation to anyone in the world. But the key is to start, you have to become an expert at something. and you become an expert at something that is going to be increasingly in favor every day, that's a good thing, right? And then there'll be demand, more and more demand for your services, right? So you start over being a consultant, you develop your cash flow from that. From your cash flow, you invest in the area that you're specialized in, because that's what you know best. Make some money, and then you can own a business in that area. A business that will give you the opportunity to leverage people, right?
Of course.
But even the consulting business is a great business because you can leverage people if you train them right and you have that specialty. And your consulting firm, it has a big reputation. It's differentiated because of your knowledge and your experience. And thirdly, it has to be relevant to what customers need.
Understood.
Hold on. Tell me, Jaden, what did you hear?
Sorry, can you repeat for me, Mr. Leachin?
What did you hear me say to you? What did you take away from what I said?
Oh, my takeaway. Well, of course, the capital challenges mean that I need to choose the option that requires less capital. That's one.
Yes.
And also just using my intellect based on my experience thus far in finance and leveraging that to create wealth, to generate the capital, so I can really embark on probably
to create cash flow.
Cash flow, that's correct.
And then you take the cash flow and invest the cash flow in that area of your specialty.
That's right? Correct. That is correct.
Okay, and that's how you create some equity, and then you have equity. You can now have your capital
to do what I want to do. Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, definitely, I take your advice, and I will definitely look at that, because it's just been something that's probably maybe I started to plan, and then COVID came. So I guess that sort of threw me off. And watching someone who I'm close to with a similar business that I was looking at, and that sort of went under based on what the outcome. So that sort of led to a delay. But based on where I see us going now, I am going to take action.
So, Jaden, you have to become highly specialized and more knowledgeable than anyone else. That's when you'll be high demand. And that is something.
Now we're just saying that is key.
That's key. And now you become highly specialized, more knowledgeable than anyone else, requires you buckling yourself down to the chair and studying and understanding, watching, and you just have one singular focus. So you become the best in the world, right? And you have control over that.
Definitely.
In that area.
Definitely. All right. Something to look into. A lot was said that I'm going to definitely take on and just create an outlook. So thank you for your time, Mr. Leachin. Thank you, Kalila, for facilitating. And I do hope we get the chance to really, so I can delve down deeper into the plans, Mr. Leachin, at some point in the future. All right.
My pleasure. Pleased to meet you, Jaden. All the best here. Thank you.
I am so happy that he, has a framework now to make that decision that he's been, battling with or grappling with for, it sounds like a couple of years now from COVID time. And you gave him that framework, Mr. Leachin. So that's awesome. He can now move forward with confidence and stop delaying, stop procrastinating. I'm going to take a couple of comments from the audience. Janori took a quote from you saying, to start, you have to be the expert at something. And he says, I like that because I tend to be all over the place. And then Robian says that you gave me an idea, sir.
Whoa.
That's awesome.
Whoa.
Yes. Brilliant. All right. Well, let us introduce our next mentee. His name is Lenworth McKinley. Lenworth, go ahead, introduce yourself and ask your question.
Yes, good evening and thanks for this opportunity to meet with Michael Leachin. Thank you, sir, for appearing.
Lenworth, pleased to meet you, man.
Yeah, thanks. So I have 3 questions. So I prepared 2 questions, but Keimo and someone else had something similar. So as someone that works in the logistics supply chain industry, you have to learn to be flexible and dynamic at instant change. So the question I have, the first question is, if you had to leave a generation, if you have to leave three guiding principles as a legacy for the next generation, what would those three be?
If I had to leave three principles,
guiding principles as a legacy for the next generation, what would those be?
What would the three principles be? Or three different frameworks?
Three guiding principles.
Three guiding principles. Okay. All right. Firstly, you want to be successful at anything. You identify a role model. Right? Who is the best in the world at this endeavor that I want to be successful in? Identify a role model. Secondly, get the recipe, study, immerse yourself totally. Be an expert in that area. Follow your role model. And if you do the same things as your role model did, you will become, and if you're even more assiduous than your role model, you could be better than your role model. You become the role model. And so identify a role model, get the recipe, and do the same. Lenworth. Don't change the recipe. No different from if I come to your home, Lenworth, and you gave me dessert, gizzarda. You know gizzarda?
Yes, I do.
You gave me gizzarda for dessert. I said, boy, Lenworth, what a fantastic gizzarda. I've never had a gizzarda like this. Tell me. In other words, you're now the role model for gizzardas, right? The best gizzarda. So give me the recipe now, Lenworth, and I want to know every single minutiae detail. So you say, Mr. Leachin, I need to get some flour. You need to get flour, 8.23 ounces of flour. You need to mix it with 4.3 cc's of milk, 1 ounce of butter, 1.08 ounce of butter, and you put it in a pan of a certain dimension, and you stir it anti-clockwise 400 times, then clockwise 200 times, the batter. And then you take the batter and you turn the oven up to 362.8 degrees Fahrenheit. And then you put the pan in the oven for 8.2 minutes.
Yeah.
You take the pan out, put it in water, cool it down, and if you did that, Mr. Leachin, you get the same gizzarda as I did. In other words, if you follow the recipe, Mr. Leachin, you get the same gizzarda. So role model, recipe, do the same. It works for anything in life. So what we now need to do is make sure when we identify a role model, we have the highest standard. Who is the best in the world? I'm not interested in mediocrity. Not. I'm competitive. I want to be the best in the world. So if I'm going to be the best if I want to be the best sprinter, I'm going to say, Mr. Board, give me your recipe, sir. I'm not going to go and sample many different sprinters. I just go to the best. I certainly wouldn't go sample the best and the worst and take an average of the best and the worst and come up with that. I'll just go straight to the top of the class, right?
Yes.
So that's the first role model recipe. Do the same. That is universal. It's applicable to any area of life. Only if you stick to it.
So, sir, so those were the principles you applied when you were making your first investment, buying those mutual funds. Those are the same principle you applied, and
same principle, exactly. Yes.
Yes. So you identified Warren Buffett. You copied Warren Buffett.
Yes. No, but what I did, not just Warren Buffett, I wanted to find out how wealthy people became wealthy. Warren Buffett was one wealthy person. Then I tested it by looking at other wealthy people throughout the world, my community, wealthiest person in my community, and I concluded that all of them did 5 things. And I've already went through the 5 things, right? So therefore, I'm going to do the same thing, and I would expect the same results.
So those principles applied, whether it's an individual perspective or a business venture, the same principle applied.
whether it's your individual business, right?
Or as an individual.
In any sector, any industry sector, it works. Whether you want to be a student, the best student in the world, the best preacher, the best prime minister, the best investor, the best business person, same thing. Identify a role model, get the recipe, and don't change it. Execute it faithfully.
Okay, thanks for that. I will apply. So move on to the next question now.
No, Lenworth, while we're talking about frameworks,
yes.
You want to be a leader, right?
Yes, I do.
What kind of leader you want to be?
I want to be the best logistic professional.
The best logistic professional leader in the world.
Yeah.
Right? So I give you the recipe. Have you identified who is that person right now? Who is the world champion in that area?
So yes, I have to take things I be realistic with things because I know I'm not able to reach to those top leaders. So
but you don't need to reach them today. You're fortunate to be born in this era because you can study them. You can go on YouTube, you can read, you can Google and just study and just immerse and go deeper, 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 deeper. You don't need to meet them. That's the beauty of communication today.
Yes.
So we're not limited to our village today.
Yes, thanks for that. So I have two more questions. The next question is, so tomorrow morning your bank account $0. What kind of action will you have to get it back your entire back?
If my bank account tomorrow is $0?
It went to 0, yes.
What kind of action would I have to replenish it?
Yes.
Work, use my brain. If I'm an employee, I work overtime, right? If I have my own business, I double down and redouble my efforts. Make sure that I give better customer service. Make sure that people get value for their money, and that way you'll increase your cash flow. But there's no substitute for hard work.
True.
But slaves work hard, but they don't get remunerated commensurately. So you have to be smart, right? Okay, I'll leave you with another framework. The best leaders in the world, right? They have Lenworth. They're strategic in their thinking. Would you agree?
Yes, I do think so.
The best, and you want to be a leader. The best leaders in the world, they execute on their strategy. They execute. They just don't talk. They build a strategy and then they execute it. When a wealthy person once told me, Mike, you want to be wealthy? Yes, sir. Well, success is 1% strategy, 99% execution. Okay? And thirdly, the best leaders in the world are ardent, fervent, passionate advocates. Okay? Strategy, execute, and Lenworth? Passionate. Sorry. Advocates.
Advocate.
Okay? So as not to forget it, Mr. Lenworth.
Yes.
What's the first letter in the word strategy?
S.
What's the first letter in the word execute?
E.
What's the first letter in the word advocacy?
A.
So the best leaders in the world have a C plan. A plan for strategy, a plan for execute, and a plan for advocacy. SEA. Will you ever forget it?
I'll write it down that I won't.
So
Yes.
anytime you're approaching a project, you ask yourself, what's my C plan, SEA plan for this project? What's my strategy? What's my execution plan? And what's my advocacy plan? Right?
Yes.
And that's applicable in any and every walk of life. Have a C plan, SEA plan.
Let's repeat it again for our audience, everybody, please. Go again, please.
No, you repeat it.
So SEA plan or a C
Yes,
plan. Plan.
What is S?
Strategy.
What is E?
Execution.
What's A?
Advocacy.
Exactly. So you have to have a strategic plan. It doesn't make sense having a strategy without having an execution.
Yes.
You execute it, and then you have to advocate it. You have to sell it.
Yes.
Okay. So everything you do, Lenworth, always think C. I need to invoke C. Strategy, execution, advocacy. Everything you do.
Yes. Thanks. Thank you so much. But before I leave, you were the chairman of the Executive Growth Council in 2016.
Yes.
You offered your service to this country.
Yes.
If they were to ask you again, would you serve, not necessarily in that same capacity, but to give your service to this country? Would you willing to offer same?
100%. I am enabled. I was enabled by my country, Jamaica. When I was in Canada, I went as a student to do engineering at McMaster University. I saved $2,000 back in 1970 to get me through first year. I did not know where second, third, or fourth year room tuition books would come from. I didn't know. So in the first year, I got a job on the campus, on the landscape department, laying grass, cutting grass, laying grass. Come July, I'd save $600. From May, June, July, 2.5 months, I saved $600. I had 6 weeks left before September. There's no way I was going to save another $1,400 to make up the $2,000. So I got desperate. Middle of July, 1971. So what I did, what every desperate student would do. I wrote to the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Mr. Hugh Shearer.
Yes.
And I said, Mr. Shearer, I'm a student in Canada, and I've been writing to your services commission, sir, asking for help, a scholarship, bursary, anything. And no one from your services commission, which was on South Camp Road then, even responded to me. This is in a letter I wrote to Mr. Shearer. Yes. Sir, but I also noticed that every year you send an emissary of recruiters to recruit the graduates. Sir, you cannot harvest unless you sow. To my surprise, a month later, middle of August, I received a letter from the Prime Minister's office saying, next time you come to Jamaica, come and see me, from Mr. Shearer. So I took $400 of my $600 and bought a ticket to come to Jamaica. When I got there, I didn't meet Mr. Shearer, I met his permanent secretary. I presented my marks, and my marks were reasonable. And they said, okay, we'll give you a scholarship, $5,000 per year for 3 years to finish your university. That's what I got through. So therefore, I'm forever beholden to my country, because my country enabled me. I would not be who I am or where I am if it wasn't for my country. So anything that my country calls upon me to do, I'll do it.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your time, and thanks, Kalila, for this opportunity to meet with Michael Leachin. And not many of us have this opportunity, and I grab it with both hands, and I really thank you for your time, sir. Thanks again.
Lenworth, all the best to you.
Yes, sir. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Lenworth. Let me see what the people watching are saying. Life coach Carissa says, gone are the days we were limited to our villages. Thanks to technology and the internet, we now have instant access. Of course, the big takeaway is the SCA plan. S for strategy, E for execution, A for advocacy. And Olusegun Trim says, SCA plan is now my go-to. So yeah, you're giving people some frameworks here, Mr. Leachin. Nadia says, the best leaders in the world are strategic in thinking and execute. Success is 1%, strategy, and 99% execution. Yes. What else we have? A few more comments as well, but we're going to take a quick break and then come back with our final 3 mentees. And I made a mistake earlier, guys. I said there were 2 women. It's actually only 1. We had 2 women, and one of them had to cancel at the last minute. So we only have 1. And it was random. I did promise that I would do a random selection. When I saw it was few women, I'm like, should I just go back and pick some more women? But I did stay random, and I stuck to that. So that's what we end up with, since we had many more men applying than women. But we'll take a quick break and come back with our final 3 mentees.
So many of you were shocked when I showed you how much you're really paying back on your loans. So if you have or plan to take out any kind of loan, a mortgage, a car loan, even a credit card, you better watch this first. I'll tell you what questions to ask when you're getting a loan, what type of loan should you get, what can you do now to reduce your debt, and I'll even give you my debt repayment calculator.
My name is Troy Gauntlet. I've learned a lot about how to pay off your credit card debt. You're just paying it minimum payment versus paying off a full sum and then paying off this in with less interest rate. So I've also learned about debt consolidation, bringing down the debt in,
Notes, man. Have you heard of instances where people are able to negotiate with their creditors and get them to cut the amount that is actually owed?
So let's say, for example, somebody owes, as you said, $500,000, but based on their situation right now, the bank meets with the client and decide, okay, give us 250 or give us half, and then we'll settle the debt.
So they can cut it in half?
How I look at it is that the bank would rather get something than nothing.
Learn how to pay off your debt faster and start using debt the right way in our premium course, Debt Do-Over. Available on demand or with a premium membership to the Money Mission community. Join now at moneymission.mn.co. The link is in the description. I don't work for money. Money works for me.
Welcome back. Welcome back. A lot more comments. Let me take a few of them. Carl says, sign of a true mentor. He asked to repeat what he understood. A lot of people say that you're giving teacher vibes. Teacher Leachin this evening. Busha says, Mr. Leachin, you brightened an idea that I had with using my expertise to make money as a consultant. So many thanks for that. So dropping gems, giving people some income ideas. Diane, joining us all the way from Belize. Hi, Diane. Diane says, wealth of information being shared, a lot of food for thought where my uneasiness of opening a business is concerned. I like that he said I must find a role model and get the recipe and follow it. Very important. And then Nicole pointing out what you said, slaves work hard, but they are not compensated. So much to expound on here. Yes, so the viewers are taking notes. And our next mentee is Rashoy Billings. Rashoy, go ahead and introduce yourself and ask your question.
And then, Mr. Leachin, it is a pleasure to meet you, sir.
Same here, Rashoy.
Yes. So I am Rashoy Billings. I am the founder and CEO of GiftMe. GiftMe is a digital gift card platform that facilitates multi-channel purchases of gift cards via corporate companies and also a consumer marketplace. We are the largest distributors of digital gift cards in the country. We are 2 years old and we are growing. And there's two questions that I want to ask you. Something you said that stuck with me is that life is not linear. And I believe I took that, very seriously. And I realized that even building a business is not linear, right? And so—
Hold on. Is it Rashoy?
Rashoy.
Rashoy, did you have a YouTube video on that? Life is not linear. You saw it?
I haven't seen it. I saw the comment today, and then I just started thinking about
it. No,
just
if you go on YouTube, good YouTube, Michael Leachin, Life is Not Linear. You see, I expound on it.
Okay, I will do, sir. Thank you very much. All right, so we're a growing business, and I believe that you can grow both vertically and horizontally once you have the fundamentals pat down and you focus on those, what is working, and then you execute basically SEA. And so my first question is, when you're at a growth stage in a business and you want to grow faster because you already have the fundamentals, as I said, right? We want to raise some capital right now, but we don't want to facilitate any dilution further of our shares in the business. So my question for you is, we're planning to use a strategy of convertible debts or a note. And I really wanted to ask you, how would you go about preserving the founder's equity in the business by using this type of facility?
By using convertible equity?
Yes.
A convertible note, sorry.
Yes.
Well, firstly, as an entrepreneur, the best investment you can make is not selling shares too early. That's the best investment you can make. Because when you sell shares too early, because you can't demonstrate a track record, you'll be selling the shares too cheap.
Yes.
Right? So you have to twist, turn, borrow from auntie, borrow from mommy, right? To get the capital instead of selling equity too early, right? So that's the first thing. You don't want to sell equity too early. Second thing you have to think, in this business, how can I get capital that is non-dilutive, right? Capital that's non-dilutive. Well, it depends on the business. But you have to rack your brain. Non-dilutive capital,
yes.
Right? And so then which could be loans. Loans are non-dilutive, right? Loans
Yes.
are but not a convertible loan. That will eventually be diluted based on the milestone as to when it converts.
Yes.
Okay, so that you want to avoid that. You want to go through firstly the hierarchy, the priority. You don't sell. You rack your brain. You beg, borrow, steal from mommy and auntie, not steal, right? Beg, borrow from mommy, auntie, uncle, friends and family, right? Yeah. Then secondly, once you have done that, then you figure out, are there any other ways that I can get non-dilutive capital, right? Which would be, how can I borrow? If I have a piece of real estate, I can borrow against it, etc. If I have shares, I can borrow against them, etc. Then the third would be, once you have exhausted those non-dilutive areas, then the third would be from the standpoint of what is would be easiest to invest in from the standpoint of the investor, would be a convertible note, which is what you said.
Yes.
Right? But depending on your business, and it's the negotiation now, a convertible note, you have to make sure the interest rate that you're paying is not too high.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that's the negotiation, right? Because and when it converts, right? You obviously want, when you negotiate, you want to convert to as least dilutive as possible.
Okay.
Perfect. Right? So I'm just going through the thought process. And then immediate equity. Right? So that which will be dilutive immediately. So that will be the hierarchy of how I would think about it.
Okay.
Because as a framework, I have codified a framework that guides me, and I call it the 3 Ds. The 3 Ds. The first is, I want my behavior should be such that there's no dilution. I don't do anything to impinge on dividends, which is right. Which is strange from me right now, right?
I understand.
Thirdly, so dividends, and I don't want to do anything that will cause distraction.
Yes.
Right. So dilution, I want to make sure I avoid that for as long as possible. If I have a business that's paying me dividends, I want to make sure it's protected. And thirdly, there must be no whatever I do, whatever I'm contemplating to do, it must have no distraction on my core business.
Okay.
So that's the 3 Ds.
So yes, dividends, the distraction. What's the other one, sir?
No dilution, or minimum dilution.
Minimum. All right. So I think the best one for me is the convertible note, because we've already had like what we call a seed round. Because we've already passed that kind of place where you ask your parents and your friends for that, right? So that brings me to my next question, which is scaling, right? So in Jamaica currently we have almost 300 merchants across the island. So we've already covered most of the footprint in terms of the necessary merchants that we need to have for this type of business to grow. And we also have over 100 corporate companies, including the NCB group, who use us now to do staff incentives and all those different things, right? And so the next thing that I want from my strategy for the business, since we have solid fundamentals locally, what we can focus on locally now is expansion of revenue here, which is, at the advocacy and the marketing and the sales part of the SEA, right? And so let's say we're doing that. We need to raise around to basically focus on the advocacy aspect. But we, at the same time, because of the business not being linear, we also need to look at scaling and moving beyond the current market that we're in, considering that it is small and we're a technology company. So we're looking broader at other markets such as the Trinidad, Dominican Republic, etc., and we want to go there. We're from Jamaica. We don't have any experience with those type of things. So what I wanted to learn from you, and since you've already scaled a business beyond the shore, I wanted to learn some of the top line things or strategies that you've incorporated into actually scaling the business to across borders into new countries, making soft landings, etc.
Okay, so the first thing I'll do, I'll not go on my own, right? Because I don't understand the landscape. I don't understand. And if I go on my own, I'm at a competitive disadvantage, right? Because you have people who are local, they know how to navigate the system better than the foreigner.
Yes.
So I'll not go on my own. What I'll do is get a local partner, right? Okay. That's the first thing I'll do. Well, before that, I would say I would not just go into a country willy-nilly.
Okay.
Right? Arbitrarily. I would firstly ask myself the question, the country that I'm intending to go into, country or countries, would I be comfortable standing in front of a judge in that particular country? Would I be comfortable doing that?
Okay.
And if the answer is no, I'm not going. Simple question.
Okay.
That will guide you as to which countries to go into and which countries not to go in. Simple question. Would I be comfortable standing in front of a judge in this country? Would I get a fair hearing?
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
I understand. Yes.
So that's the first gate I would have to go through. The second gate would be to find a suitable partner, right? To find a suitable partner. And this brings me to another framework, which is a framework that defines long-term sustainable relationships. Partner is a relationship, right?
Yes.
You have a girlfriend?
Yes.
So whether it's with your girlfriend, your parents, your children, your staff, your boss, these are relationships. And if you want to have long-term sustainable relationships, have the four following components. Number one, they're governed by integrity.
Yes.
Right? Integrity. Secondly, they're governed by decisions are made by in an intelligent way, not because I'm bigger than you, shut up.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's an intelligent way. Decisions are made by intelligence. Thirdly, so there must be integrity in the relationship. There must be integrity in how decisions are made. There must be mutual passion, right? Mutual purpose, mutual passion.
Understood.
And lastly, there must be alignment.
Yes.
So for any relationship to be long-term sustainable, there must be firstly integrity, intelligence, passion, and alignment.
Yes, sir.
So if you know, think about what I just said and test those relationships that worked, you see that all those four components are present. Those relationships that did not work, those four components are not present.
Okay. I completely get what you said. All right. All right. Thank you very much for that, sir. It was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you a lot.
My pleasure. Best to you here.
Thank you very much.
That's awesome. I really hope that helps in making that decision in the next market. It's great advice. You wouldn't go alone. It makes complete sense. It's like some people, you might just not think about the obvious thing. Find a partner in the market that you want to enter. All right. Let me see. Let's just introduce our next person. And I was right originally. We do have two women tonight. It's because I didn't see one of them on earlier, but we do have two women. And the first of them is Debian Davis. Debian, go ahead, introduce yourself and ask your question.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you, Michael. So my name is Debian Davis. I am a mother of one. I am a marketing manager. My specialty is in product development and customer loyalty. And so I also have a passion for agriculture and food security. And so I consider myself as a serial entrepreneur. I've started many businesses and in agriculture, food delivery, and consumables, with the hope that I could move into it, quit my 9 to 5 and go into it at some point. But as you know, with any startup ventures, things, are really difficult, and sometimes it takes some time to make the company much more profitable and efficient. So while I'm not afraid to start these businesses, sometimes I'm afraid to continue because I look for the financial stability of it. And so what I would want from you tonight is your advice on how myself or anybody else on this interview could overcome that fear.
Well, overcoming the fear is a function of your confidence, right? It's a function of your confidence. It's a function, and your confidence is a function of your belief in what it is you're doing, right? If you really believe what you're doing is the right thing, and this is the only thing you're gonna do, because it merges with who you are, right? And what you want your legacy to be, right? Mm-hmm. At some point, you have to jump off the precipice. If it's not burning, at some point you have to jump off the precipice. You can't wait for all the green lights to line up and the highway to be cleared and no traffic cops before you drive your car. So, confidence is a function of of knowledge, of experience, and of the rigor in which of the analysis that you went through to come to the conclusion that you came to. So, rigor, analysis, experience will give you make you more confident. And the more confident you are, that's how you'll overcome some of your fear. I was gonna say overcome your fears. But will never. There should always be a healthy dose of fear, because when you have fear in you and excitement at the same time, fear and excitement at the same time, you can't be complacent, right? If you just have excitement in you, it's a problem. You're gonna go off like a halogen balloon. If you have fear in you, you're gonna be paralyzed. But you need a combination of fear and excitement. So most of us, we try to eliminate fear, but that will make you complacent, right? So you need fear and excitement. So there has to be some fear. So I was gonna say, so you'll never have all green lights. You just have to be confident and do what you possibly can. Control the things that you can control best. And those things that you can't control, you be aware of them. Yes, but I can't control them. But so if I'm ambushed by them, I know exactly how to deal with them. But those things you can control, you control perfectly.
Thanks for that. So my next question is, so I know you're going into the agricultural field, and so I wanted to know, with the increase in global consumption of Jamaican products, such as peppers, pimento, ginger, would you recommend venturing into these produce types? Why or why not?
Well, agriculture is a very, very tough business. Very tough. So we all have to tip our hats and respect farmers. We all have to do that because it's a tough business. You're subject to all types of vagaries that are outside of your control, from pests to weeds to bureaucracy to hurricane to storm to too much sun, too little sun, no irrigation, etc. Just world markets. And when you produce your when you have your produce, there may be a glut because everybody produces at the same time. So it's tough. So I say that so that those of us who want to get into agriculture, we have to go in with our eyes wide open. And agriculture also is a scale business. It's agriculture. The products are commodities, right? And the winner in any and every commodity business is the business that is the lowest cost producer, right? So you have to, and to become the lowest cost producer, you have to have scale. So the first thing you have to ask when you get into agriculture is, do I have enough scale to become a low cost producer and hence become price competitive? Because price is the only differentiation between rice and rice. Rice is a commodity, right? Right? So price is the only differentiation. So and you need scale therefore. So you have to solve for scale. That's the first thing you have to solve for before you get into agriculture. Or it's going to be it is difficult. As I said, the field is difficult. The space, the sector is difficult, and if you're underskilled, you're just compounding difficulty and increasing your chance of not making it. So scale is something that most of us don't think about, but we should.
So you actually hit a very good point for me, because I've done a few things in the field. I've done chicken, I've done apiculture, and the scale has always been one thing that has beaten me, because going into it, especially as a woman, you're dealing with the bureaucracy and everything that you just talked about, but then because you have other farmers in it so long that they already have the scale that they can go to the hoteliers or the corner shops, it's hard for you to break into those areas. So that's a very good point. Thanks for that.
So the question. So it's knowing is most important, because once you know what the problem is, then you can rack your brain and solve for it. So the question is, how do you solve for scale as a small farmer? That's the question, right?
That's actually on my third question to ask you.
Really? Oh,
yeah. Not in the way that you just said it, but for scale, to achieve scale, obviously you need investment. And so I wanted to know if you had any area or any avenue that I could look at to seek investment for agricultural prospects to increase my scale.
Okay, so what I would do, because remember, we're trying to solve for scale here. You don't have scale, and we're trying to solve for it. So if you could somehow aggregate, let's say for instance you want to get into avocado, right? The production of avocado, as an example. First you need to do is say, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to make sure that I have my farm is the minimum scaled farm, so it's not undersized. So what I'm going to do is go on Google and see what a scaled avocado farm would be like in Ecuador, Colombia, all over the world. And then you plot a graph and you see where clusters, right? So it may be 100, you need a minimum of 100 acres. So you now know I need 100 acres to plant avocado. Anything less, it will be underscaled, and my cost of production is going to be too high. I'm not going to be competitive. So, but 100 acres, so what I need to do is get 5 other similarly inclined farmers who want to get into avocado and put together like a little cooperative for your little cooperative, right? I know you just pool same, so you can all share everything. Or that's one way. Get five of who are like farmers who are like you. Or you can go to a big farmer and say, look, you have 80 acres, right? But you need 100. Give me the 20 acres, and we know put combine out. We know have a scaled 100 acre, which is what the minimum you need.
Right.
Right. But your equipment, I don't have any equipment, but you have the equipment that you're using on your 80 acres. I'll borrow it from you. I'll commission it from you and pay you for it. But what I'll do, I'll pay you when we get the produce. I'll sell my produce to you to compensate you for the capital, the fertilizer, the weed that you advanced for me. We decide that you advanced for me, right? So you now have a business attached to a relatively scaled farm, but not totally. And the two of you combined become viable.
Okay.
I'm just throwing out ideas.
I like
right?
them.
But
I actually didn't think about that.
But you have this, what you're solving for is scale.
Got you. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking with you. All the best.
All the best to you.
Amazing. And I can see the light bulbs going off in Debian's head as you answered her questions. She was there writing her notes. I see Jan said, happy to see farming being included. Did not think of benchmarking or scaling and the idea of a cooperative. Love this. And then we also had Busha commenting, saying, given the circumstances, how do you solve for scale? Love that question. And he added, or she, quality of the question determines the quality of the answer. Absolutely true. We always hear about people talking about scale, but then the how, and you gave us the framework once again. So we really appreciate that. Our next mentees, we have two left, down to our final two. And our next mentee is Ashantia Stewart. Hi, Ashantia. Introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hi. Good day, Mr. Chin. My name is Ashantia Stewart, and I am the center owners with online marketing. And with doing so, I want to help them to maximize profits for their business. I particularly do so through website development and social media management currently. So during your ownership of AIC, the company's valuation experienced tremendous growth from 200,000 CAD to around 6 billion CAD. And I want to be very specific with this question. What were the key measurable indicators that you ensured were executed flawlessly in AIC as it pertains to your specific period of management to ensure that you saw a return on investment? And I want to know this to see how I can apply it to my own business to replicate that.
Well, I start off by the general framework that is relevant to every business. Every business has to think every day about the reputation it's building, right? And we're going to talk about how you build the best reputation. Secondly, every business has to think about how it keeps differentiating itself from all other business. If you don't differentiate yourself, you'll end up being a commodity. And as I just said, a commodity commodity businesses are really not good businesses, because what you're competing on is price. And when you have a business that competes only on price, it's tough, which now becomes a scale business. So reputation, you have to differentiate yourself, and you really have to pay attention to your customers' needs, right? Because your customers will guide you as to what you should be doing. So I start off with reputation building. So the question is, how do you build a great reputation, right? To build a great reputation, you have to absolutely stand for something. You have to stand for something. And then what you do, you write that's what you stand for on a virtual banner. and you walk up and down Main Street every day, waving your banner, whether it's sunshine, rain, winter, summer, spring, hurricane, up and down Main Street every day with your banner. What's written on your banner is what you stand for. So after 5 years, the onlookers are going to say, boy, is either you're a mad person, you're walking up and down Main Street saying the same thing, or they're going to believe what they read on that banner. So that's how you build a reputation. Number one, state clearly what you stand for. Secondly, you walk the talk, right? Through thick and thin. Okay, that's how you build the best reputation. Then you have to differentiate yourself. And thirdly, you have to stay close to your customers.
Thank you for that. I absolutely agree with everything that you're saying. And with that too, my mind is now going back to 1977 when you started to sell mutual funds. And you informed us, of course, that when you got the job offering for mutual funds, you were not aware of what a mutual fund even was back then, but you took up the job. Now, my question to you is, what are the key selling techniques that you utilize when you went to visit those families to sell these mutual funds? Because it was a case where you were new to the industry, yet you got very, very successful at that. So talk to me a bit about your approach to selling and ensure that it is done extremely effectively.
Okay, fine. So when I first started, I had a cold call, knock on doors. And I was in Canada as a young man, age 26. This big black guy, age 26, young, knocking on doors. I didn't look like a Canadian financial advisor. I didn't sound like one, right? So I was dissonant to what people would think a financial advisor is. So when I knock on doors and someone said, okay, Mike, you can come and see me next week at 7 p.m. When I got to the person's house at 7 p.m., I would say to myself, wow, these people are so gracious to be allowing me to come into their home and advise them on their future, right? Because of their graciousness, how can I compensate them? I felt that I had to do something to show my gratitude. So I asked myself the question, what is the highest value I can provide to this family here tonight? What's that one thing that if I delivered on it, is going to transform their life? What's the highest value I can give to this family here? And the answer kept coming back to me, Mike, make them wealthy. Oh, because you can make families wealthy, that's the highest value you could give to them. So the question then became, is there a formula that if you practice consistently, the only outcome is wealth? Because there's such a formula, I want to know what that formula is, and I'm going to practice it, and I'm going to be the role model for it, and I'm going to be the advocate for it. So I wanted to find out the formula to create wealth, if there was such a formula. So I studied assiduously, and by 1980, I figured it out. Wealth is created by doing 5 things. Number 1, own a few high-quality businesses. Number 2, you understand them. Number 3, they're in strong long-term growth industries. Number 4, businesses use other people's money to enhance the wealth. And number 5, the attitude of the owners is that I'm going to hold these businesses for as long as they remain strong, and the industry within which their domicile remains strong. So that was what I codified. So now I wasn't selling mutual funds. I sold people on the 5 laws and said, look, you want to create wealth? Let's not talk about products. Let's talk about how it's done. Like the framework. And once you buy the framework will guide you as to what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
Right? So I was selling the framework, and from the framework, we were guided by what we should be doing. Owning a few high quality businesses that you understand in strong long-term growth industries, etc., etc., etc. So that's why I sold. So I was there pushing products, right? I sold a framework that would lead to wealth creation. And I started off by saying, what's the highest value add I can give to this family here tonight? Today, I still ask that question. And I would suggest that any situation you are faced with, you ask the same question. When you meet someone new, you say, what is the best I can do for this person? What's the highest value add I can give? Because what it does, when you ask that question, you start thinking about, first you start listening. You start listening to what they're saying. And if we talk about listening, most people, there are two types of listeners. The first is people who listen to rebut. The second is people who listen to understand. You have to ask yourself, who am I? Right? So the key is to ask the question in any and every situation, what's the highest value add I can give to this person? You listen to their situation.
I'm saying thank you for that, because what I've just learned is that you're not necessarily selling the product, but you're selling the framework around it to show the individual how they can benefit. And that actually leads me to my last and final question, which is also growing the brand. So, Mr. Chin, in your successful ventures, you built and manage high-performing teams that contribute significantly to the growth and success of your business. And I want to know how you approach building and nurturing such teams, and what strategies can other business owners implement to actually retain high-quality content in this competitive industry.
Okay, if you start off with, what culture do I want to build in my business? What's the culture, right? Do I want my business to be, what's the DNA I want to build in my business? And I know what that is. In my case, I want my businesses to represent the following. I want my business to be seen and as businesses that will absolutely deliver on doing well. Businesses have to do well. And then secondly, the businesses that I want to be associated with, they have to do good for society, right? Doing well and doing good by doing good for society, right? Doing well by doing good. So doing well will give you the cash flow. Doing good is what gives you fulfillment, right? So and that basically is my whole philosophy, doing well by doing good. And therefore, I want my businesses to reflect my philosophy. So there is continuity. There's no dissonance between me and what my businesses represent. So each person has to determine that. If it makes sense to you, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just do the same thing. Doing well by doing good. But what I did further to make sure that it is permanent and it's always in front of all my staff know it, is codify what doing well by doing good by translating it into Latin. And the Latin for that is prosperitas cum caritate, prosperity with care. Right? Okay. So that's the DNA, the spirit of the business that I want. So when now the business can only be continuously successful if you have the right people, right? So you have to have a framework for getting the right people to join and you keep them. So the framework for long-term sustainable relationships, whether it's between you and your staff, you and your children, you and your friends, would be you want to, 4 conditions must be present. There must be integrity in the relationship. Secondly, there must be intelligence in how decisions are made. Thirdly, there must be passion, a mutual passion. And fourthly, there must be alignment. So you want to hire people who have those 4 qualities. You just don't hire someone because they sound good or they look good, etc., or they have a strong educational background. You want to have a framework that is relevant to long-term sustainable relationship. Integrity, intelligence, passion, and alignment. So it starts off with getting the right people in. Then you want to make sure there is some invocation in your company whereby they go through a process that at the end of the process, the last person in is as well. You won't get it the first. Get it. This is the ideal. The last person in is on the way to have the same outlook, aspirations, hardworking, smart and creative, energetic as the first person in the company, right?
I like that you mentioned that because, as you had pointed out earlier, it is a case in which you look on the characteristics when you're hiring that person. So actually nurturing that relationship becomes much easier because they already share their values from beginning.
Exactly. Another set of framework that will be relevant here. You want to look for people who are smart and creative. Smart and creative. Energetic. High expectations of themselves. High expectations of the organization. Right? Those that you want to have people. So you need frameworks to determine who comes in to work with you. Then you want to make sure that you communicate well with your staff. And so managing by walking around is something that is still relevant. Then when we talk about communicating, there's a hierarchy of communication that we should be conscious of. The best form of communication is face-to-face. The next best form of communication, thanks to Zoom and Microsoft Teams, whatever, is what we're doing here. But this is not as good as face-to-face. But it's the next best form. The third best form is the telephone. And the worst form of communication is email or messaging.
Yeah, written.
Now, think about it. Best form, face-to-face. Worst form, email. How do most people communicate today?
I would definitely say that they communicate over email or written because we have the laptops, we have technology. So a quick text or email, but what happens is that a lot of information is lost because you can't communicate that value, right? Or those facial expressions and build meaningful connections. So I totally understand.
So you see, we have it reverse. The best form is face-to-face, yet still most communication we do every day is at the opposite end of the spectrum, the worst form, which is email and WhatsApp messaging. So if you just remember that, the best form is always try to be face-to-face. And at the worst case, then you use email, but you go through that protocol. Best form, next best Zoom, next best telephone, worst is email.
Thank you for those details. I really appreciate your knowledge, and I look forward to hearing from you more in the future.
Thank you very much. All the best here.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Ashantia. Gems upon gems once again. I see Trina said, oh my God, I missed this all. I will have to get the replay. Yes, the replay will be available. As soon as this video is finished, you can just rewind and go back to the beginning and watch it from the start. So, and take your notes. Take your notes. We have one final mentee, but before that, we're going to take our last break.
What do you do when you're suddenly hit with a big unexpected expense? If you have children in prep school like me, I have two, you've gotten the note that school fees are going up by as much as 50%. So you're stressed out right now, huh? At this point, you may be considering some of these options. So you may be looking to reallocate funds, maybe cancel summer vacation, take out a loan or put it on a credit card, move your kids to public school, or you just gotta step up your hustle. But we can figure it out. That's the thing. Realistically, all we have to do is plan.
My name is Tamika Thomas-Shaw. My top things today were about budgeting and investing. While the session on budgeting started off making me feel as if, oh boy, I've not been doing myself much justice in this area, I opened my eyes as to what I can do, and especially the app that you shared with us. So I will definitely be putting the action.
Build your budget with me inside the Money Mission community. You'll get my BYB template, app recommendations, and live brainstorming sessions to help you plug those income gaps. Build Your Budget is available on demand or with a premium membership to the Money Mission community. Join now at moneymission.mn.co. The link is in the description.
In the sweltering heat of Jamaica, a humble appliance attempts to tame the relentless blaze. Enter the Lasco fan, valiantly striving to provide respite from the scorching temperatures. With blades spinning and air circulating, the Lasco fan becomes a symbol of hope in the face of oppressive heat.
We not about that life. We have AC money. We have JPS money. Join me and the money makers inside the Money Mission community.
All right. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's time for our final question of the evening, and that goes to Jorquin Walters. Jorquin, introduce yourself and ask your questions.
Hello, Mr. Chin. Hi, Michael. My name is Jorquin Walters, co-founder of Walters Weddings, and which is a part of the Nation, which is the Imagination, which is basically a media and design firm. And I am actually speaking to you here all the way from Canada. However, I do have a partner, which is my brother in Jamaica, who we run the business together. And we are now in the process of acquiring a 5-acre parcel of land, which is just 5 minutes north of Old Harbor. And the plot is very close in proximity to Colbeck Castle. I don't know if you know Colbeck Castle, but it's a National Heritage Site. It's actually one of the only castles in that region of Jamaica. And I'm currently contemplating various areas and various ideas, which it has, number one, hydroponic farming. Number two, a commercial space with supermarkets, restaurants, and entertainment center. Number three, a movie studio lot. Number four, wedding venue estate doubling as an Airbnb. And finally, a hospital. So given its proximity to this heritage / soon to be tourist site, what would, and nearby housing schemes, because Old Harbor is one of the fastest growing towns in Jamaica. What would you do if you had this land?
What would I do? Well, I don't, it's, I would look for things that are, it depends on my time frame. Okay. If I'm thinking very long term and I want to develop a source of cash flow from the business, I would execute on what you just said, right? Own these assets because they're cash flow generating assets once they're built, etc. If I'm thinking long term and I want to, and the plot, this plot of land has the right location, has the right traffic flow, etc. If I'm thinking short term, I would say, and this is the business I want to get into, I would say housing in Old Harbor is in high demand. So I'll be looking at providing housing if I'm thinking more short term. So it depends on your whether you're thinking long term or short term as to what I focus on.
Well, it's kind of a double-barreled question because we're thinking of hydroponic farming in the immediate short term because it's containers and it would be contained, but eventually it's kind of between the commercial space or the wedding venue estate or the possibly the hospital. So the long-term one is the one that's really giving us the little up and down. We're not sure.
So if you're not sure, what does that do to your confidence if you're not sure?
It doesn't make me very confident at all. It makes me excited because of the proximity to being surrounded by persons which are in a because there is no commercial space that would be like that in that area of the island, St. Catherine, and like because of how dense the population is becoming, that's why I'm thinking commercial. But when we look at where the world is heading towards, especially how Airbnb is becoming, we're also we're also, you know, because as I'm speaking to you, it's whittling down my ideas, as you can notice. So I'm not sure how to decide or how to even pitch it to the other stakeholders in this plot of land.
So, okay, so first thing, as you're speaking, what came to me is you're trying to attack too many different things. You're trying to do too many things.
Okay.
So you're dispersing your capital.
Okay.
And so you need to focus, right? What business am I? Let me get one thing right first.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go in, get one thing right. Focus and get one thing right. Let me get some cash flow from that one thing that is right. And once I'm in it, I'll have a much better idea as to what next I should do. But for you to stay, if you're not in it, in other words, you can't catch the tide unless you're in the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So firstly, select one of the 5 things you mentioned, 5 or 6 things that you eventually want this to be on this plot. Do it right, do it well, get some cash flow, and once you're operating that business, it will guide you as to what else you should be expanding it upstream and downstream of that business. What are the inputs? What are the outputs? Right? And what is upstream? Should you be vertically integrating so you become much more comprehensive? But it strikes me that you're starting off by being too diversified, and you get distracted, not only by virtue of management distraction, but also capital distraction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a bad recipe.
Okay.
So select one and do it right first on the plot.
Okay. And so let's say, for example, we chose a commercial space, right?
Yes.
How would you go about getting capital for that commercial space?
Well, you own the land?
It is in probate right now because my father passed away last year, so it is in probate being passed on to us.
Well, firstly, you have a plot of land. You have to make sure the location, although you're inheriting it, the location may not be ideal for commercial space. So the first question is this plot, the location, ideally positioned or to take advantage of the traffic flow? That's the first thing. If it is, great. If it's not, sell it and use the capital to buy. If you really want to get into commercial, use the capital to buy a better location.
Okay.
Right? Don't be married to that piece of land, because you're entering into a business that you have to look at what are the success factors that will make it long-term sustainable. And if you're in a bad location, you waste your money.
Okay. I really appreciate that, because it opens up avenues. Even today, I was speaking to some persons, and they light bulbs start going off in their head. But I'm like, okay, that would mean that I would probably have to get the land sold and find another piece. So now that you're seeing that, I'm saying that, I'm like, well, maybe that's what we should do.
But you have to be driven by one thing: the best location. That's what that is the North Star that should drive you. If I'm going to start a business, I want to make sure it's the best location. I'm fortunate to have this asset, piece of land, 5 acres, but it may not be the best location. It may be a great location for someone else. Sell it to that someone else, and you find the best location that is most suitable for the business that you're trying to develop.
So I once heard someone say, who was an architect in training at the time, that if you build it, they will come. Does that still hold water, or?
No, I wouldn't do that. That's
You
too
wouldn't do that?
speculative. That's too
Okay.
speculative. Especially that is relevant only if you build something that is so monumental that it becomes a destination.
Okay.
Right? But if you're gonna build a regular commercial operation, which is not monumental and it doesn't have the attractive features to be a destination unto itself, then you're gonna lose a lot of money. So build it and they'll come is relevant only if you're gonna do something that is sensational, monumental, and people say, get up on Sunday morning and say, children, pile into the car because we have to go look at that destination.
Okay.
It's relevant then. But if a regular commercial building, those are dime a dozen, you have to find location.
Okay. I really appreciate this, Mr. Chin. I when I saw you make that offer to Kalila about mentorship, I was like, I have to get into this class. And it was worth every penny. It's $1 million experience, as many people are saying here, and I really appreciate you, sir.
My pleasure. All the best to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to Jorquin for asking our closing question. Let me take some of our comments from the chat. Let me see what we have. Who am I? Says the land not driving the business idea. The business idea is driving the land, which the land might and can't support. Steven says, great quote. Don't be married to the piece of land. And I see a lot of other comments as well. We had some coming up earlier from your response to Ashantia. Listen to rebut or listen to understand. Who am I? And he says, kiss my neck. Couldn't believe that piece of advice. But that's so true. You have to really listen to understand. And I love what you told Ashantia as well about what is the highest value service that I can offer to a person. That is the key to sales. I wrote that one down because that's something we absolutely have to consider. Devroyd says, this is public service. Abel says, watched a lot of your interviews and I realized something. You always want to solve a problem. How do you solve a problem? Think outside the box. That's something that occurred to me as well. Mike Stolichin, really putting that engineering mind to use, solving problems. Nicole loves our money mission ads. Thank you, Nicole. And Namke says, you guys had great questions. Stumping kinds of questions. Congrats. Yes, I agree. All the mentees this evening came with their guns. They knew they had this $1 million opportunity and they asked the right question. So that's awesome. And Rabian says, one question to leech in could cost $1 million. And then Debian saying the general public having access to Sir M. Yes, indeed. And if you heard Jorquin mention worth every penny, it's because Jorquin is one of our mentees from the Money Mission community, which you've been seeing advertising all evening. We did reserve some spaces for members of that community to ask questions. So guys, the next Ask Mike comes up in October because you've committed to every 3 months, right? We're still on track. How was it for you this evening, Mr. Leachin?
Man, this is like 2 hours and 14 minutes of intense grilling. Without me eating dinner yet.
Yes, I pick your brain,
I
man.
enjoyed it 100%.
I love that.
Kalila. And you stepped up. I challenged you and you stepped up. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you for honoring the commitment and coming on the program. The questions were amazing. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch from scratch and take my own notes as well, because as an entrepreneur myself, the advice you gave, trust me, top notch. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Don't leave just yet. I want to talk to you off camera after we finish.
No, I have to go now.
Which is like right now.
I'm hungry.
Which is like right now. I'm wrapping up the show right now. We're closing out. I want to say thank you to all our guests this evening. Thank you to our viewers, guys. If you want to apply for the next Ask Mike in October, make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter at KalilaReynolds.com/newsletter. And that way you can see, when the link goes out, when the applications are being accepted. Tomorrow night is Taking Stock at 8 p.m. So we'll see you there. Thank you again to everybody, and see you tomorrow. Let's get this money.